Good morning. Welcome to this incredibly early Thursday morning slot. We traded a lot of favors to get this slot, so it's really nice to see so many of you out here. For those of you as well on the live stream and watching the recording, thank you for giving us your time as well. My name is Dominic. I'm an engineering manager on the Google Play console.
My name is also Dominic. I'm product manager for the Android app bundle. My fun fact is this is the 5th Google I/O I've worked on, but the first time I've presented a session, so I'm very excited to be here.
And my name is Vitor. I'm a product manager at Google Play, working on increasing your app install success and update rate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pierre, and I'm an engineering manager on the Android app bundle and dynamic delivery.
Great. So the focus of this session is going to be to introduce you to some of the tools that you can use to optimize your app size and boost acquisitions. We're going to split the session into 3 parts. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the factors that impact your app's install success rate on Google Play. Then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Vitor, who's going to talk about some of the work that we do in the background on Google Play to help your install success rate. And then finally, we'll hand over to Dom and Pierre, who are going to walk through what you can do on your side to help your install success rate and the tooling that we have that can support you in that. So to set some context, in 2018, we delivered 100 billion installations to our users. That's about 8 billion a month. Now that works out, when we look at the amount of data, as 22 exabytes of data. That's a lot. It's 22 trillion gigabytes. And I know we're playing big number bingo here, so I want to try and bring that back to something more concrete. So in 2005, the global traffic on the internet was 22 exabytes. And that's the year that YouTube launched. So we like to think of this, that the Google Play app distribution network last year was the size of the internet back in 2005. So this is why we care about the amount of data that we end up delivering to users. Now, what drives your install success rate? There are millions of users that come through the Play Store looking for apps to install, and they might be searching for your app, they might see ads, or they might get a recommendation. Either way, at some point, they end up on your app listing page. They're going to read the reviews, they're going to look at the screenshots, the videos, your store listing, and hopefully they'll make the decision to click that install button. But that is not the end of the story. That is not an acquisition until that app has been downloaded and installed onto the device. There's a lot that can happen between those 2 steps. Let's take a look at some of them. When we looked at our data, we found that 30% of the time, that installation doesn't fully complete. So that means that a third of the time that a user decides to install your app, they don't end up with it on your device. So what happens, and what can we do to improve this? It turns out, when we look into it, that there are 3 main reasons for this drop-off. There's the internal free space on the device, there's the time it takes to download the app, and there's the cost of the data involved. I'm going to go into each of these in more detail. So first, space. This is not just a problem for emerging markets, the internal free storage on devices. This is a problem that we see across North America, Europe, everywhere that we look. And what we've seen in our data is that out of our over 2 billion users, a third of them, 28%, have less than 1 gig of free internal free space. Now, how does that affect your users? Well, when the user tries to install an app, the Play Store will determine if there's enough free space for that installation on the device. And if we determine that there's not, we won't download that app, we won't waste the user's data. What we will do, though, is pop up an uninstall wizard that encourages the user to free up some space. Now, it's possible that the user won't be able to, or won't want to remove some of the apps that they have to make room for your app. And Vitor's going to talk a little bit later on about some of the improvements that we've made to the uninstall wizard and some of the ramifications that that can have. The second issue is time. Now, it's fairly obvious, I think, that the larger your app download size, the longer it takes to download that app. What may be slightly less obvious is how impatient some of your users might be with the time it takes. And what we see is the larger the app download size, the more potential there is for the user to cancel that download. And similarly, the longer it takes to download your app, the more chance there is that the user is either going to have a network error or is going to move out of their coverage, and in either case, we'll end up erroring out and not getting the download. The third thing we talked about is cost. So we take for granted Wi-Fi or practically unlimited data plans, but that is not the case for the majority of our users around the world. And the cost of their data can be significant. So when they try to download your app, when they see how much data it's going to take to download it, many of them will immediately cancel that download. So we have space, we have time, and we have cost. But we wanted to go a little bit further than just finding out why things were not completing, and we wanted to come up with something a little bit more quantifiable to share with you today. So we developed a model that maps the size reduction or increase of your app download with the eventual install success rate. And what we found out from our model is that for every 3 megs that you can save on your download size, you'll get a 1% increase in install success rate. Or, to put it another way, every feature that you add to your app that increases the size of the download will have to be traded off with the eventual acquisition loss. So there's a few of the ways in which size can affect your install success rate. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to Vitor, who can talk through some of the things that we've been doing in the background and how that can help.
Awesome. Thank you, Dominic. So great. So let's start talking now about how Google Play can help you to make even better performance and things that we can do automatically for you. You may be wondering first, why were we talking about these things that are automatic if it's automatic? Well, we're talking about this so that you, as a developer, can have an end-to-end view of the entire funnel, and knowing that, optimize your app to work better within this architecture. And we will point out a few different things that we do that you can actually work with and perform even better. So we will talk about 5 features today. We will start talking about 1 for space, 2 for time, and then 2 for cost. Great, so let's jump straight ahead and talk about space. As Dominic was saying, space is a huge barrier. So out of there, we have 3 out of 10 users that don't have a ton of space. They only have 1 gigabyte left. So even if cost is not an issue, even if time is not an issue, we know that these users might simply not be able to install your app, and that's a shame. So what we do here is we have a feature called the uninstall wizard that you can see here on the screen that says users help them to free up space, show how much space they need to free up, and gives a few options. We have actually improved this feature quite a bit in 2019, as measured by what we call the recovery rate, which is how many users are able to use this dialog and actually proceed to the installation. What did we do? 1, we changed the UI so that it's much easier to use. So we highlight the relevant information, we highlight how much space needs to be clear, it's easier to select and easy to find these apps. And we have seen a big change in performance as a result. Next, we also changed the ranking so that we highlight apps that are large, apps that are not used, and users can easily find them, so success rate improves. Why this matters? 1, as this feature becomes better, it helps you guys. Like, it's something that actually becomes even more successful when you get more installs. 2, as we improve this feature too, large apps are more likely to be uninstalled. So that's actually something that you should think about, because if your app is larger, you will suffer more with uninstalls. And as Dom and Pierre will talk later, there are a lot of tools that we provide for you that help you to monitor this and understand how we can actually make your app smaller. So now let's talk about time. So time is an issue because people are impatient. People have a lot of things going on. People don't want to be like waiting at a screen for something to load. They want to just be playing the game or using a new app. And people cancel. That's just what happens. What we can do here is we can make the artifacts, make the APKs smaller. And we do that using compression. For new installs, we automatically, on average, make 10% reductions on the size that was submitted to us. And that's something that's great. It just helps you without anything different. And for updates, the improvement is even more dramatic. We use patching, comparing the version that is available on the device versus the version that's going to be downloaded. And when we do that, we actually reduce the total APK size download by 85%. So updates are much smaller and much more likely to be successful. And one thing that here that you can do as a developer to help us is related to uncompressed native libraries. Because of compression, if the library is uncompressed, our compression works better. So we can make things smaller, and especially we can make the updates smaller. So talking about native libraries, this is something new that we are announcing here today, and we're really excited. It's a feature that is being used for Google Play Instant, which is instant games. So you may go to the app listing page, and you see a button saying Try Now. That button allows you to click and easily play a game really fast or use an app without something different. And in that situation, Try Now, it's now. We need to make this really fast. And this is really important so that it's really small. How we can do this? We were looking at a few options, and what we noticed is apps actually have a lot of shared content. So on the slide here, you can see a few different boxes. You have gray boxes, which are actually content that is specific to each app. So in the example, game A and game B, they might be assets, they might be sounds. They're the things that make the game unique. Then you have these blue boxes, which are a game engine. A game engine is actually something that a lot of people use, and there are a few of them, and some are very popular, and they're pretty much in a lot of games. And why should we be downloading this thing over and over again if we may already have something on the device? Now, until recently, we didn't do this actually. Everything was like a black box. We really would just know that this is the same, and we would download game A, game B, without knowing the difference between this content inside each APK. What we could do that is something much different and much more interesting is we could tell that this user is a gamer. This user has Wi-Fi, so data is not such a big issue for these folks. And then what we can do is we prefetch a library, and we keep it on the cache. And then when we go and click on Try Now, what happens is we download only the specific game assets, and we reassemble the APK on the device so that the download size is much smaller and the user can jump into the experience much faster. In this pilot with instant games, we are seeing savings of up to 40% in download size, which is massive and should make a huge difference in conversion and engagement with these games. So, jumping now into cost. So cost is something that is really easy for us to forget. Cost is because, well, if you're watching this on the live stream or if you're here in I/O with Wi-Fi, we don't think about these things. You are streaming a lot of megabytes and not really thinking about how much are we consuming in data. But a lot of users don't think like that, and they have limited data plans, and they need to be very careful with every megabyte. This leads to different behaviors in these markets. One thing that people do, it's very popular, are peer-to-peer applications, and you can find them in the Play Store. There are a bunch of them. And how it works is, you have, for example, your phone and a phone from a friend, and you create automatically a Wi-Fi connection, a local Wi-Fi connection, and you transfer files so that there's no cost and this works offline. And this is something that users love. Well, people don't do this only with files like music, videos, and things like that. They also do it with apps. And there are a lot of problems with that. Security, we don't know, they might know the provenance of this, might know if it's not compatible, and that's actually quite dangerous. We actually solved this problem by creating a new API that was launched in the end of last year to fix exactly this, and that P2P apps can integrate. What it does is they check the APK to make sure that it's actually a Play APK. 2, it actually makes sure that this APK is compatible with this other device so that the transfer just works. And 3, we also make sure that we add to the user a library, so updates, metrics for developers like you guys, we find everything in the console later, and that's great. So that's something that is new, and it's pretty exciting. Then, the last thing, we're going to talk about cost. This is a pilot that's coming up soon in a few markets, so you should hear more about it, which is a pilot in partnership with local carriers, so local mobile operators. How it works is a carrier can offer mobile data at no cost for downloads, installs, browsing the stores, clicking on screenshots, and all these things. So if the user is one of these users that actually is really worried about data, this no longer needs to be part of the equation. They can just be rest assured that they can download this app and enjoy something that they didn't before and have fun with your app and games. Thank you very much. And now I will pass the word to Pierre, who will talk about things that you as a developer can make to make your app smaller and more efficient, and in the end, reach more users. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitor. So we've seen the importance of reducing the size of your app since it directly correlates with the number of users that will install your app. Also, the bigger your app is, the more likely it is to be uninstalled. Now that we've seen what how Google helps serving smaller apps, let's see what you can do on your side to also optimize the size. So we'll do this in 3 steps. First, we need to agree on the metrics you should measure. You should use to measure the size of your app. Secondly, once you know what to measure, you need to know how to measure it. And we've got some new reporting in the Play console to help you with that today. And thirdly, with tracking in place, we're ready to take actions and start optimizing the size of your app. And we have also some new tools and best practices to share with you today, which will help you do just that. OK, so before we see how to optimize your app, let's talk about what you should measure. So you're hopefully convinced by now that the size of your app matters. But what app size are we talking about? It's important to note that there are different types of sizes you can measure for your app, and not all have the same importance. There are in practice 3 ways to measure the size of your app. We have the app upload size, the app download size, and the app size on device. And I'm going to explain each in a bit more details, but I want to start with a bit of a show of hands. Raise your hand in the audience if you measure the size of your app by looking at the file size of the APK you upload to the Play console. All right, almost everyone. Yeah, that's indeed quite a common practice, because it's easy to do. That's what we call the app upload size, because that's the size on disk of the file that you upload to the Play console. It turns out it isn't such an important metric, because it's not what your users will see. It's neither the size of what they download, and it's neither nor what they see when they look at the device, on the device, at the disk usage of your app. What you should measure instead is the app download size. This is the optimized size of the APKs that the users download to their devices over the wire. The optimization is performed by Google Play, and the final size is determined by multiple factors, including the type of compression we're able to perform or the patching we're able to do from one version to another. This is the size that users see in the Play Store as well. And you can now also see it in the Play console, as Dom will show you later. App download size is a really important size metric to track because it's directly correlated to your install success rate. So how can you measure it? So some of you may already be familiar with the APK analyzer in Android Studio, which already gives you the possibility to monitor the estimated download size of your app. It also shows you the download size broken down by file, so you can see where the biggest files come from. For developers publishing app bundles, the download size will vary per device configuration, because each user is getting a tailored version of the app that depends on their device configuration, based on their device and language. If you've published an app bundle before, you may already be familiar with Bundle Tool, which is the tool generating the APKs from the app bundle. We added a command in Bundle Tool to help you estimate the download size of your app for the various device configurations. Let's take a look at how to use it. So the command is called getSize, and it outputs in a CSV format the minimum and the maximum download size of your app across the range of devices your app supports. In this example, you can see that my app's download size ranges from 79 megabytes to 22.6 megabytes, depending on the device configuration. Well, you're going to say it's still quite a big range, so how can we know in more details which devices get what size? So we can break down the result by various device dimensions. And this is done through the dimensions flag. So here we ask to break down the results by SDK version, and we get a bit more details. We get a breakdown by SDK version. We see in this example that the download size of my app is bigger on older versions of Android, J and K, and smaller on L and above. That's because pre-L, Google Play doesn't generate language splits, so all languages are included in the APK served to the user. Now, we can get into even more details. We can break down on more dimensions, such as ABI, screen density, and even language. If you do that, then that will output a lot of rows. But you will get to see the download sizes for each full device configuration. With this command, you can track the download size of your app for every build of your bundle, for all your users at the granularity you want. All right, so that was download size. Today, we're introducing a second important app size metric, the app size on device. The app size on device is the approximate size of your app on a user's device. And as you'll see, it can be much more than just the size of your APK. After an app is opened, the app size on device can vary quite a lot depending on how it's used. So for the purpose of measuring the data, we will focus on the size at installation time before the app is opened. Size on device is important to track because it's a major factor in uninstalls. Note that it doesn't include the cache or the user data. It's just the application size. To try and understand better why the size on device differs from your APK size, here's a simplified diagram of what happens when an APK is installed on a device. First, let's look at the DEX files. DEX files get optimized by the platform during the installation by a tool called dex2oat. This optimization will make your app run faster, but usually at the cost of a big size. The size of the optimized DEX can vary quite a lot by device and by SDK version. And as I mentioned before, it will also vary during the life of your app, depending how the app is used. Second, the native libraries. When you compress the native libraries in your APK, the Android platform needs to uncompress them, which takes additional space on your users' devices. Fortunately, you can avoid this by leaving native libraries uncompressed in your APK, which allows the Android platform to read them directly from it without having to extract them. And that's available since SDK 22, and you get this for free with the Android app bundle. So all of this makes for the total size on device of your app. OK, so now we have seen the two app size metrics you should focus on. Dom will now show you how you can now track these in the Play console.
Thanks, Pierre. Pierre talked about the size metrics you should be tracking. Download size, which is what's delivered over the air to users, and size on device, which is the device storage needed for your app. Now, I'm going to talk about how you can track and analyze the size data for your apps in the Play console. And then we'll move on to how you can actually work to reduce the size of your app. You can now track both of these size metrics on the statistics page in the Play console. Statistics reports are highly customizable. You can do things like compare both size metrics to each other. You can see the sizes for different device configurations. And you can compare the size metrics to your other app metrics, such as installs and uninstalls. So, for example, you could pinpoint the impact of a sudden increase in your app size and how it's impacting something like installs in a country like India, which is particularly impacted by changes in size. That's not all. We're going a lot further than the statistics page. Today, we're launching a brand new report for app size in the Play console. You'll find it under Android Vitals, which is where you can find all of the data to do with your app's health and performance. There's lots of new data in the app size report for you and your team, so let's take a look in more detail. You'll see two tabs for both of the important metrics, download size and size on device. At the top of the tab, we'll show you the size for your latest production release compared to a reference device. And if you're using multi-APK or the Android app bundle, we'll show a range of sizes for different device configurations. You can also see how you're doing compared to peers. You can actually go in and change the peers to be more appropriate apps to compare your size to. This gives you a target to work towards. Because size is important to users and it impacts your downstream metrics, you're going to want to make sure you're doing as better than your peers as far as you can. Being able to compare yourself to peers is a brand new functionality we're adding to the Play console this year. You can see another example here for your app's rating. It's very powerful. you can select 8 to 12 peers to compare yourself to, and you'll see the median value of the peer set and the difference between your app and your peers. So back to app size. The next section of the report shows you 2 new metrics relating to your users. These metrics use anonymized user data from devices opted in to sharing their data. First, you'll see the proportion of active devices which have your app installed but have low free device storage. You can think of these devices as having a higher uninstall risk than devices which have plenty of device storage. Secondly, you'll see uninstalls which are happening on devices with low free device storage. App size may have been a deciding factor in driving these uninstalls. This is the first time we're giving you additional insights into what might be impacting your uninstalls in the Play console. Keeping your app size optimized and obviously as useful as possible can help to reduce these uninstalls. We'll start populating both of these metrics in the coming months. Now, we also show you a view of your app size and how it's changing over time. Being thoughtful in how these changes happen is important because it can impact your installs and uninstalls. In this example, you can see when the app first switched to the Android app bundle and the size savings that resulted. If you're publishing with an Android app bundle or multi-APK, you can also see the full range of device configurations here. The next section of the report is data you'll only see if you're publishing with an Android app bundle. We're able to perform a more thorough analysis, so we can actually show you a breakdown of all the components that make up your app size. You can see how much of your app is made up of code, native libraries, resources, assets, and so on. The point of this chart is to help you prioritize what to focus on. You can get a very clear understanding of the main contributors to your app size. And you can see how they change from release to release. We've been testing the new report with developers, and they tell us they're really excited to get access to this new data. They look forward to being able to sharing it with stakeholders in the team so that they can actually prioritize reducing app size on their roadmaps. So we've covered the size metrics and the new reporting, which helps you track your progress. The next thing you need to do is actually work to reduce your app size. So I'm going to pause and ask a quick question around the room. Raise your hand if you're already publishing with the Android app bundle. OK, quite a lot of you. That's pretty good. That's great. For those of you not familiar with it, I'll just give you a quick intro to the features, and then I'll tell you about the new things that we've added. So the Android app bundle is Android's official publishing format we introduced last year. It's open source, supported in Android Studio and Gradle, in Buck, and for games, it's already supported in Unity and Coco's Creator. App switching have seen an average reduction in download size of 20% compared to a universal APK. And partners are seeing up to 11% increase in installs from these size savings. That's a huge impact from a relatively simple switch. Over 80,000 apps are using app bundles in production. Late last year, we shared that apps such as Airbnb and Twitter are using the app bundle. Many new apps have started using it in production and are seeing these size savings, from Flipkart and Netflix to Shazam and games like Clash of Clans and Minions Rush. Google apps are switching too. This year, Chrome, Duo, Google Photos, and others have all switched and are seeing size savings. The #1 feature request we've had from many of you, and some of you may be eagerly awaiting, is better testing tools for the Android app bundle. So you can already publish app bundles to the testing tracks and test them as normal, but this takes time, and the app has to be signed with your production key. Today, we're introducing a new feature called internal app sharing. It's different to testing tracks. It allows you to drag an app bundle signed with a debug key onto a web page to generate a URL. You simply tap that URL on any device, and you'll instantly install the appropriate splits for that device. It's very, very quick and very, very useful. That's not all there is to the Android app bundle. It sets you up for the future as well. Once you've switched, you're able to take advantage of modular app development. This is great for engineering velocity and build times, and it also lets you customize how you deliver features to your users. So dynamic features are coming out of beta today with some new delivery options. You can deliver features on demand, or you can deliver features based on conditions, like device features or countries or SDK version. All developers can now publish dynamic features to production tracks and join apps like Chrome, Facebook, and Netflix, which have dynamic features in production today. With the Android app bundle, we're moving away from the idea of a monolithic app where everything gets sent to all of your users at install time. Instead, you can deliver a lean, efficient app up front, and you can customize the experience for different types of users. There's a whole I/O session later today just on this topic. You can watch what's new with app bundles in the amphitheater at 1:30 p.m., or watch it on YouTube later too. OK, let's get back to optimizing app size. So on the same app size report that I've been talking about, the final section is a list of recommended size optimizations for your app bundle. When you use the app bundle, we do a thorough analysis, and we generate tailored optimizations which are appropriate from your app. We also order them by the expected size savings. This will help you prioritize exactly what to work on next. I'm going to invite Pierre back on stage so he can talk about some of the optimizations that we are going to start suggesting.
Thank you.
Good clap.
So, one well-known optimization that usually provides significant size savings, you should be all familiar with, is code minification through R8 or ProGuard, for example. If we detect you're not using it, we'll prompt you for this recommendation. Another thing we do is scan your image assets and tell you how much size you could save if you converted them to WebP. WebP is an image format Google developed a few years ago. It has both lossless and lossy compression, and on average, WebP images are typically 25 to 34% smaller than comparable JPEGs. Android Studio already has a tool which allows you to convert images to WebP in batch or one by one, and you can then preview the image conversion results and tune the quality level when choosing lossy compression. All right, so the next optimization is extracting rarely used libraries. Sometimes your app makes use of a library which takes quite significant space in your app, but is used only rarely by your users. By extracting this library in an on-demand dynamic feature in the app bundle and download it only when the user needs it, you can often reduce the size of the initial download by a few megabytes. An example of such library is Card.io, which is a library used to scan credit cards. Here you can see an app where we've extracted the credit card scanning flow in a separate dynamic feature in the app bundle. We download it when the user needs to register their card, and then we perform the scanning. Then, we don't forget to uninstall the dynamic feature once it's used and no longer necessary to free up space on the user's device. Similar to large libraries, you can do the same thing with large resources and assets too. We'll help you identify the large resources and assets in your app by displaying in the list of optimizations the biggest ones and their download size when you expand the optimization tip. One approach could be to extract a large file into a dynamic feature and deliver it on demand, or uninstall it when it's been used. But also, depending on the size or the file type, there are other approaches you can take too. For example, for media files, you could consider streaming them instead. So, all these optimization tips will be available on this app size page, and we are actively working on adding more, so check back regularly.
All of this is available today. Go to the Google Play console, and you can start seeing optimizations for your latest release. In the near future, we're going to launch a size optimization plugin for Android Studio as well. you'll be able to see optimization suggestions directly in your IDE. And what's really cool about this is you can apply some of the optimizations in just a few clicks. Delivering billions of installs every month is a huge responsibility and something at Play that we keep on working on to improve. We work behind the scenes to optimize every step of discovery and distribution. We're continuing to build tools to help you publish more efficient apps which can take advantage of next-generation delivery options. These are your takeaways for today. Number 1, start publishing with the Android App Bundle. Number 2, visit the new app size report to track your data and get new optimizations. And number 3, you can start thinking about taking advantage of modular app development. The final thing we're going to leave you with is a video. Riafi is a developer of many popular apps in India, and they've shared their story with us of how they switched to the Android App Bundle. So thanks very much, everyone, and have a great I/O.